There are celebrities who feel like furniture in our lives. Always there, always familiar, always reliable. Kelly Clarkson has been that for over 2 decades. From the moment she stood on the American Idol stage in 2002 as an unknown girl from Texas and sang her way into the national consciousness, she became part of the fabric of American entertainment. She has given us anthems that defined generations, a talk show that made mornings feel warmer, and a presence on television that felt less like performance and more like a conversation with a friend. For millions of people, Kelly Clarkson is not just a celebrity. She is a constant, which is precisely why the events of the past year have been so difficult to watch. Because right now, if you step back and look at the full picture, the health scares, the cancelled shows, the professional endings, the grief, the guilt, and the quiet unraveling happening behind the polished smile, one thing becomes undeniably clear. Things are not looking good for Kelly Clarkson. Not in the sensational way that tabloid headlines suggest, but in the deeply human, quietly devastating way that happens when too many difficult things arrive at once. This is the story of what is really happening with one of the most beloved entertainers of her generation, and why the people who have followed her journey for years have every reason to be genuinely concerned. To understand where Kelly Clarkson is right now, you have to understand what the Kelly Clarkson Show meant to her. When it launched in 2019, it was not just a career pivot. It was a statement of identity. It was Kelly choosing to show up every single day and be herself, funny, emotional, unfiltered, and deeply warm, in a format that rewarded authenticity over performance. The show became one of the most successful programs in daytime television, drawing over 1 million viewers daily and earning Emmy Award recognition. The signature Kelly Oak segment, where she performed cover songs at the top of each episode, became a cultural phenomenon of its own. For 7 years, she built something genuinely special. And then, in February 2026, she announced she was ending it. Her statement was honest and brief. "This was not an easy decision," she wrote on Instagram. "But this season will be my last hosting the Kelly Clarkson Show. Stepping away from the daily schedule will allow me to prioritize my kids, which feels necessary and right for this next chapter of our lives." She thanked the staff, thanked the viewers, and promised she would not disappear entirely. The current 7th season will continue airing through the fall of 2026. But when those final episodes close, so does one of the most successful chapters of her career. What makes this moment more bittersweet than triumphant is everything that surrounds it. This was not a clean ending or a graceful exit taken at a moment of her choosing from a position of strength. It came at the end of one of the hardest years of her life, after her ex-husband's death, after cancelled performances, after health scares, and after a year of trying to hold everything together while the seams quietly came apart. In a recent appearance on the Today Show, she spoke alongside fellow voice coach John Legend and told Carson Daly plainly, "I think everybody probably gets the timing. Our family life, the dynamic changed a bit, and it has changed for a minute now. You got kids, and it's one of those things when you kind of start seeing life as how precious it is, too." That phrase, seeing life as how precious it is, carries enormous weight when you know what she has been through. But more on that shortly. What is particularly striking is the emotional moment that played out live on her own show when the ending became real. Singer and actress Rita Wilson appeared as a guest in late May and took a moment during their conversation to praise Kelly openly and genuinely, acknowledging what she had built and the impact she had made on daytime television. The studio erupted in applause. And Kelly, who has always been someone who wears her emotions close to the surface, struggled visibly to hold herself together. She broke into tears, laughed through them, and pulled Rita Wilson into a hug while joking, "I'm not crying." But she was. The entire studio could see it. It was not the cry of someone leaving on a high note. It was the cry of someone who has fought incredibly hard, carried enormous weight, and is finally allowing herself to feel the cost of all of it. Before the talk show announcement even came, Kelly's year had already been defined by setback. In the summer of 2025, she launched what was meant to be a triumphant new chapter, a Las Vegas residency at the Coliseum at Caesars Palace called Kelly Clarkson Studio Sessions. It was her second residency, following a successful 2023 to 2024 run, and it represented exactly the kind of artistic return to roots that fans had been hoping for. After years behind a television desk, she was going back to where she started: the stage, the music, the voice. It did not go as planned. Just hours before the opening night was set to begin on July 4, 2025, Kelly canceled the show. 90 minutes before showtime, as fans were already preparing to arrive, she posted a statement explaining that the intensive prep and rehearsals had taken a severe toll on her voice and that she needed to protect herself from doing, in her own words, serious damage. She called herself devastated to have to postpone, describing how hard she and her team had been working around the clock to make the residency extraordinary for fans. The opening was pushed back by nearly 2 weeks. Fans were disappointed, but they rallied around her with messages of support. The general consensus was that protecting her voice was a right call, and that the shows would be worth the wait. And to Kelly's credit, she did return to the stage and began delivering the kind of powerful, intimate performances that justified all the anticipation. But then the second blow came. In August 2025, before the final scheduled shows of the summer run could take place, Kelly announced she was canceling again. This time it was not about her voice. She posted a heartfelt message to social media explaining that she needed to postpone the remainder of the August dates because her children's father had been seriously ill and that she needed to be fully present for her kids. She wrote plainly, "I need to be fully present for them." The next day, it was confirmed that Brandon Blackstock had died. He was 48 years old. He had been fighting cancer privately for 3 years. Brandon Blackstock and Kelly Clarkson had one of the most complicated relationships that modern celebrity culture has produced. They met at the Super Bowl in February 2012, married in October 2013 at a private ceremony in Tennessee, and together built what appeared from the outside to be a warm and grounded family life. They had 2 children, a daughter, River Rose, born in 2014, and a son, Remington, born in 2016. Blackstock also served as Kelly's manager, blending their personal and professional lives in ways that would later become deeply contentious. When Kelly filed for divorce in June 2020, citing irreconcilable differences, it set off an 18-month legal battle that became one of the messiest public splits in recent entertainment history. There were disputes over property, over finances, over custody, and over the millions Blackstock had allegedly overcharged her as her manager. The divorce was finalized in 2022. In November 2023, a court ruled that Blackstock had violated California's Talent Agencies Act, and he was ordered to return over $2.5 million in disputed commissions. It was an ugly, grinding process that left wounds on both sides. And then he got sick. Reports confirmed that Blackstock had been privately battling melanoma for 3 years before his death. Neither he nor Kelly had publicly acknowledged the illness. But as his condition worsened in the months before he died, things quietly shifted between them. Sources indicated that Kelly had been in contact with him as he got ill, setting aside the bitterness of the divorce to focus on what mattered: their children and the man who was their father. When she canceled her Las Vegas shows to be with her kids, she was not just being a good mother. She was watching someone she had once loved very deeply approach the end of his life. The grief that followed his death was layered in ways that are genuinely difficult to process. She was not just mourning a former husband. She was mourning the father of her children. She was watching her daughter and son lose their dad. And according to people close to her who spoke to the Daily Mail, she was also quietly grappling with something even harder than grief: guilt. Sources described Kelly as being deeply affected by questions about whether the stress of their contentious divorce had contributed to Brandon's health struggles. Kelly is aware of talk that stress can impact the body and make someone more susceptible to cancer, one insider revealed. Although the timing could be purely coincidental, she knows how much tension the divorce and lawsuits put on them. Another source said that while she does not blame herself, she is conscious that the double whammy of the divorce and the fact that he had to repay her millions of dollars was very tough on him. They added quietly, "Now that he is gone, she doesn't feel great." This is the kind of grief that does not announce itself cleanly. It does not come with a clear narrative or a simple process. It sits in the background of everything: every white commitment, every moment on stage, every smile for the cameras, and asks impossible questions that have no answers. While Kelly was managing the most personal challenges of her life, her professional world delivered its own bruising blow. In May 2023, Rolling Stone published an investigation based on accounts from 1 current and 10 former employees of The Kelly Clarkson Show. The report described a production environment that workers called overworked, underpaid, and, in the words of multiple former staffers, traumatizing to their mental health. One former employee described the show as by far the worst experience I've ever had in my entire life. Another described going up to the roof of the stage to cry and asking themselves why they were subjecting themselves to such conditions. The Workers Guild of America launched a formal investigation into the production. The picture painted was of a behind-the-scenes culture driven by brutal expectations and poor treatment of staff. What made the story even more striking was this: every former and current employee who spoke made a point of separating Kelly herself from the problem. They called her fantastic. They said she never treats anyone with anything but dignity. They said she was incredibly appreciative. They were confident, they told Rolling Stone, that she had no idea how unhappy her staff truly was. When the report became public, Kelly responded immediately. She called the situation unacceptable and acknowledged that finding out her team had been feeling unheard and disrespected was deeply troubling. She vowed to mandate leadership training for all senior staff, including herself, and committed to building a healthier environment as the show prepared for its move to New York. Her response was widely praised as genuine and accountable. But the reputational damage had been done. And for someone who had built her brand entirely on warmth, authenticity, and genuine human connection, having her show associated with the words toxic and traumatizing stung in ways that went beyond the headlines. Pull all of these threads together, and what you have is a portrait of someone who has been carrying an enormous weight across a prolonged stretch of time. The health scare that upended her residency launch. The death of her children's father. The grief she can't fully process because her children's grief has to come first. The guilt she can't entirely dismiss. The professional ending she has been forced to announce. The workplace controversy that implicated her show. All of this layered on top of the baseline reality of being one of the most watched women in American entertainment, where every word, every appearance, and every decision is scrutinized in real time. People who work in high-pressure public roles often describe reaching a point where the cost of maintaining the performance simply becomes too high, where the gap between who you feel inside and who you have to appear to be in public becomes unsustainable. Kelly Clarkson, by all available evidence, has reached that point. She has spoken openly in the past about the emotional toll of her divorce, telling Apple Music in 2023 that she did not handle it well. She has acknowledged the ongoing demands of managing a packed professional schedule while raising 2 children largely on her own after relocating from Los Angeles to New York. She has been candid about the ways that grief and pressure do not disappear just because cameras are rolling or because audiences are waiting. And yet she has kept showing up. She has continued filming her talk show. She returned to The Voice for its Battle of Champions season. She has tried, as she always has, to give her work everything she has. The people who observe her from close range say she gives her best in every single performance, no matter what is happening in her personal life. That dedication is admirable, but it also raises the question of what it costs. Despite everything, it would be wrong to paint Kelly Clarkson's story right now as one without hope. Because even in the middle of an extraordinarily difficult period, she has demonstrated, as she always has, a stubborn, deeply rooted resilience. She announced the end of her talk show on her own terms, in her own words, with clarity about why she was doing it and what she was prioritizing. She is